Hey, good morning, guys. And sorry I'm a little bit late, which we're working on anyway. I'm Misha. We're here to talk about insulin resistance today. Now, I've been giving it a lot of thought. There's been a lot of comments made, and all of them positive, I feel like. But people just don't seem to understand why I'm so focused on this. So let's be some real transparent. Not a doctor, not a scientist, not a gym bro, not a nutritionist. I'm a real woman who suffered with all of these things that I talk about. And that's why I'm here talking about it. So it happens that I worked with medical professionals. I went to see multiple doctors. I was at the doctor's office at least twice a month having tests run. I was on 13 medications. My health was failing more and more every day, and I couldn't understand why. I'm here because I know I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one who's going through that. I'm not the only one who has a long list of symptoms that nobody seems to be able to figure out. Or worse yet, they just point the finger back at you and say, lose weight, do better and you'll feel better. And yet they're not giving you any answers, as if we are someone who understands everything that's going on in the human body and why we might be getting sick. That's why we go to them and we're not getting answers. And so I'm here talking about it because I want people to have hope that there's a simpler way to address most of our disorders and diseases today. So if it's lifestyle related, scientists are saying that 95% of lifestyle related disorders and diseases are linked to insulin resistance. So I'm just putting together all those links. So now yesterday, somebody asked, there was a couple of people who asked questions. So I hope y'all are here this morning. One asked about phantom smells, and I'm going to wait a minute. We'll talk about those things. And we're also going to talk about vitiligo, two things that I've never talked about before. You guys, I appreciate when you give me stuff to talk about, when you give me stuff to go look up, when you make my mind expand and have me go learn things. Because let's stop the insulin resistance talk for a second. Because in reality, I'm 60 years old. If I don't use my brain, I lose it. You guys, what we don't use, we lose. Whether I don't care what age you are. If you're not using it, you're going to lose it. So why do I love doing all this stuff? Because it keeps my brain engaged, and that keeps me feeling younger all along anyway, regardless of the insulin resistance. However, it's so much easier for me to think and do research and stay focused since I've gotten my insulin resistance under control. So we're going to link in insulin resistance to vitiligo and phantom smells. I'm going to tell you what I found, and I'm going to explain what's going on as much as I can. What I want everyone to understand is that the research into insulin resistance is just like at that beginning stage. As more and more scientists and doctors understand this link between insulin resistance and all of these things going on in the body, they're starting to do research into these separate disorders to see what's happening. And they're already finding links to almost everything that I've asked about. So I cannot tell you that everything you're going to ask me about is going to be linked to insulin resistance. And here's the thing, in all honesty, you guys, because I have a curious personality, I will be happy when somebody asks me about something in earnest, like, no, insulin resistance doesn't cause you to break a bone, or does it? But anyway, if I can find something that's really not linked, that's amazing. But when you ask me questions in earnest, I'm going to answer. So let's dive into insulin resistance first. And then we'll start talking about those two disorders and how insulin resistance is linked or not to vitiligo and a very different thing, phantom smells. So insulin resistance. I was thinking about it this morning because a guy on one of my posts said, on a sleep apnea post, if you just lose weight, weight is the cause of all of these things, and weight is why you're having this sleep apnea. And I responded by saying, what causes the excess weight is insulin resistance. So we're still back to the insulin resistance. Weight gain for most people is a side effect of being insulin resistant. The other things are like a couple of separations or degrees of separation down the road, but it all starts with insulin resistance. And yes, oftentimes it does start with the excess weight we're carrying around our body, either in the joint deterioration, the inflammation, the oxidative stress. Those fat cells cause all of that. So And then it got me thinking about the rabbit hole. So if the weight's not the root cause and insulin resistance is that really the root cause? Or is the root cause of insulin resistance the modern food environment we're in? We could go down this rabbit hole 1,000 more degrees, but I want you to understand the simplest place that we can start is that our food is imperfect. We're not getting fed the way we should, even when we think we're eating healthy. And this is why so many more of us are getting sick today. I was just watching a doctor talk about how beets had 76% less nutrients today than they had 40, 50 years ago. But it's not just beets that are suffering from this nutrient deficiency. It's all of our fruits and vegetables for a number of reasons. Our farming practices, not rotating crops, not having fertilizer such as manure on our crops neutralize them. That's the wrong word, but hey, there we are. I'm imperfect too. So the root cause, as far as I want to go today, the root cause really is this food environment that we're in. Our foods have been changed and we're being told to eat way more than we should. And that's what's causing insulin resistance. How? Because the majority of the food that's available to us today converts into glucose really quickly. It's this continued high level of glucose that needs us to have a high level of insulin all the time. When we have that high level of insulin all the time, then we have insulin resistance. So it's a progressive disorder that leads into all this other stuff. Now, do you have to be fat to be insulin resistant? Heck no. Do you have to have any or all of these symptoms? No, you could have one or two of them. You could be thin and be having migraine headaches and fibromyalgia. You might be insulin resistance. You could be thin and experiencing PCOS or thyroid problems or joint problems. It could be insulin resistance. And it's worth taking a look at because if understanding that getting nutrients and specific nutrients like fiber and vitamins and minerals into your diet in a very simple way could help you, wouldn't that be better than multiple doctor's visits and medications? So, are you with me so far? And I didn't explain insulin very well. I'm sorry. Insulin is a hormone that delivers that glucose to the cells. That's why we need insulin. When we raise our glucose levels, we raise our insulin levels naturally as a way to get that glucose to the cells, not only to the cells, but in the cells, because glucose is still a primary energy piece in our metabolism. And our metabolism just talks about how we use energy in our body. But every single cell needs energy. Every single cell has insulin receptors on it. So if we're raising insulin all the time, and that cue from insulin is unable to get that energy into the cells anymore, that's insulin resistance. Now, so we're going to go into a little bit about these two disorders this morning, and please ask questions. I know this picture up back here is not very big for you guys, so let me see if I can do something here. Oops, that's not where I want it to be. You guys, I'm so sorry. I'm having dysfunction this morning. There. No. Effects. There we are. You guys, all this stuff that I have in my camera screen. Can you imagine having so much junk? Well, I don't have one here, so we're gonna negate that. Sorry for this detour, you guys. But there we are. All right, so all of these things on this list are things that could be linked to insulin resistance. But again, today we're going to talk about, I want to talk about phantom smells first. And I'll try to do a video on that later so that if the person who asked about it is not here, you can come back and find that. So do phantom smells actually relate to insulin resistance? And you guys, I'm going to lean on the research I did. So give me a second because I got to pull up that paper right now. So I got to find it. Now I lost it. Phantom smells. Well, I had it. So here's the thing. Phantom smells. I found it. You guys, I have so many research things going on over here. It's crazy. Now I'm just waiting for it to pull up. Phantom smells have a neurological disorder basis, meaning that the brain is triggering things that might not be there. So you may wake up and you feel or you smell something, and it still is going off on vitiligo. It's not letting me open up my research on there we go. All right. I found it. I can talk. I read it last night, but I've forgotten part of it today. So, all right. Phantom smells. Phantom smells. They happen when there's a problem in the brain, neurological problem. So initially, when I did the research, there was like, yeah, there's no link between phantom smells and insulin resistance. So thinking a little bit, just like I do every morning here, I said, okay, but what about the fact that insulin resistance causes some neurological dysfunction, meaning that nerve endings are not firing correctly, meaning we're not getting messages correctly throughout the brain and the body. And so when we look at the research from that way and we start to say, okay, this is what's causing phantom smells or these neurological disruptions, and there's no link to insulin resistance. But then I say, okay, but insulin resistance causes neurological disruptions. So now is it possible that insulin resistance is actually one of the links to phantom smells? And now we get to the answer of, oh, yeah, yeah. Now, when we look at it that way, instead of just insulin resistance, phantom smells, but saying insulin resistance causes A or B, and A or B causes C, now we have some links. But it takes thinking a little bit differently and trying to find real answers through all this stuff. So, phantom smells can be related to insulin resistance when there is a disruption of these neurological messages being transferred throughout the brain. Now, with insulin resistance, not only do we have inflammation and oxidation, you're going to hear me talk about that a lot with almost everything we talk about, but it affects the way the telomeres on the end of those nerve endings are actually building or degrading or responding. And so now instead of nerve endings getting passive messages from one to the other, they're kind of going out the side and all over the place. Well, that can cause neuropathy, but it also can be linked to things like phantom smells. So the simple answer is there is a very indirect link between insulin resistance and someone who has this phantom smell syndrome. Now, the protocol that I talk about every day to help with insulin resistance actually has a 90-day money back guarantee. So with phantom smells and vitiligo, I'm going to encourage you to dive in for 60 days, not 60 days, 90 days, to see what changing that in your body, changing the possibility that you have insulin resistance, see if it starts to help, because there's a 90-day money back guarantee. So if it's not linked to insulin resistance, if it's not helping your health all around, you get your money back. So phantom smells in a very indirect way, as far as the science knows today, is linked to insulin resistance. Now, as we do more and more work, and there's a ton of disorders for us to look at in relation to insulin resistance, so it's going to take a while, right? But the more they look at links between insulin resistance A and any disorder B, they're finding that there is an actual link when they look. We just haven't looked that far in most science yet for many of these disorders and diseases like phantom smells. But let's talk about it a little bit differently. So, insulin resistance in the brain is associated with cognitive decline and Alzheimer's, and that disrupts insulin signaling pathways, leading to increased vulnerability of amyloid beta and tau proteins, which are hallmark features of um, this Alzheimer's disease. And this disruption is linked to impaired synaptic function and memory deficits, but all of that can also be linked to the occurrence of phantom smells. So then we have this thing of of mood disorder because of dopamine production, which is crucial for mood regulation and cognitive processes. And insulin resistance changes the dopamine production in our brain. So I'm going to pause for a second because I'm going to talk about this a little bit today. ADD here, right? So ADD, my brain already does not either produce or utilize dopamine properly. So I'm not like everyone else. And so I do have things where I tend to hyper focus or because it's creating dopamine and it's giving me that feeling that y'all get in any moment of the day. It's more difficult for me. But insulin resistance can exacerbate that. So is there any phew, likelihood behind the fact that my ADD was so much better when I was also insulin, or was so much worse when I was also insulin resistant? Yeah, it is. But all of that still can be linked into this dysfunction in the brain that's causing phantom smells. So, insulin resistance also affects the housekeeping functions of cells, glial cells in particular, and they support that neuronal health in our brain. So when that starts to degrade because of insulin resistance, this glial cells function, now we have a degradation of brain function as well. Yeah, so Alzheimer's, ADD, autism, phantom smells can all be linked to this degradation of cells in the brain. Okay, so phantom smells, or they call it I'm not going to say this right, and I get crazy when people say things wrong. Like I was listening to a video today, and a lady said, especially. There is no X in especially. There's no X in especially. And some of those things drive me crazy. One of my friends calls Dr. Bickman, Dr. Bickham, and that just drives me crazy. And I'm like, there's no H in his name. Can we say his name right? So I'm not going to say this right, but bottom line, I'm not going to say this right, and that's going to drive me crazy until I go look it up. But phantosmia. Okay, they're often linked to neurological issues. So we've already discussed a little bit about how insulin resistance is causing disruption in neurological issues, and so now we're making that reach. And it is a reach. I'm going to be clear. This is a reach, but if we're having neurological disruptions, and that's the basis of this phantom smells. So we have insulin resistance causing neurological disruptions. Neurological disruptions are at the root of phantosmia. That's a link, okay? But intermittent fasting could potentially mitigate some of the neurological impacts of insulin resistance, helping that. Getting the insulin levels down could impact that and help that random phantom smell that's going on. And I didn't even look to see how many people are affected by it. Those are questions I should ask, but there you go. Now, the other person asked me about vitiligo, and I was really hesitant about this because I'm like, boy, that is a reach to me. That is a reach. And so it was a similar thing. Like, does insulin resistance cause vitiligo? What the answers that I was finding was that the predominance of vitiligo, actually in the current research, those people with vitiligo have a higher occurrence of insulin resistance. So now naturally, and I'm sure science is looking at this right now, naturally my mind goes to, okay, but anytime I see a group that has a high prevalence of insulin resistance, I have to ask, was insulin resistant a result of this disorder, or is insulin resistance a cause of the disorder? And so then we start going down that line. Now, again, there's no direct research directly linking insulin resistance to vitiligo. But what we do know is that people with vitiligo have a higher occurrence of insulin resistance across the board. Their HOMA-IR is higher. Some of the symptoms of weight and other issues are higher in these people with vitiligo. So now again, I say, now let's Uno reverse that. Uno reverse, here we go. So if you're saying that vitiligo causes a higher instance of insulin resistance, number one, I want to say it's even better idea to address your insulin resistance if you have vitiligo, because you know that it's going to be worse with you. But my brain also says, did the vitiligo come first, or did the insulin resistance come first? And what I'm finding is that it's very much like some other things, that you have this genetic predisposition to having this melanocyte disorder, the melanin disorder that's causing these patches of skin. So vitiligo is where they have patches of skin that are normally colored and patches of skin that are very light. It shows up more often in highly melanated people than in us people with less melanin, because obviously there's less contrast. So now when I uno reverse it, they say, "Well, yeah, there's not any direct science that says that insulin resistance is the cause of it, but it's not a big leap to make, especially considering the amount of people with insulin resistance who are already diagnosed with vitiligo. Did they miss the insulin resistance before they found the vitiligo, or did the vitiligo cause it? Either way, it's worth addressing, because we know if you're higher risk with for insulin resistance with vitiligo, and that's going to cause all of these other symptoms: hair loss, bleeding teeth and gums, eyesight deterioration, joint deterioration, cellular misfunction throughout the body, and inflammation and oxidation throughout. It's worth addressing either way. So again, do it for 90 days and see if it's going to work for you. And then please keep asking questions like these, because I think it's important not only for me to understand, but as we have these queries, then science starts going, oh, hey, people care, and we're going to actually do some research about these areas. So vitiligo, phantom smells in degrees of separation are very linked to insulin resistance, in how insulin resistance is causing cellular energy disruption throughout the body. Okay, I hope that answers those. And then let's talk. We were talking about fasting yesterday. And the thing that I talk about every day that helps with insulin resistance, Lucy, I see you. Thanks for joining my live this morning. So Lucy is a dear friend of mine from school back in North Idaho. And, you know, Lucy, I love you, by the way. Lucy always had a beautiful, amazing soul, and she was a runner. She was a phenom in my mind. I could watch that girl run miles, and she's on a natural health journey like I am. She introduced me to the AO scan, which is what I use to see where my body's at every day and help me understand what I need to do every day in this imperfect world. But she also started on the Feel Great system, and she's thin, and she's very eating clean and natural stuff, and she forages and she does all kinds of really cool stuff. But she started the system, and it took a little while, but now her belief and her knowing how much her body has changed and how it feels with the system, she just wrote, I love the Feel Great system. So because we have so many people who are just like that. They think that, oh, this couldn't affect me. I have a bodybuilding friend who's also a trainer and a coach. And she was like, well, I don't know if this applies to me. She's thin. She doesn't have the bulging belly. She didn't have some of that, but she had a number of the other symptoms of insulin resistance. And now she does the system every month. It's helped her get control of diabetes that she knew she had, but nobody else knew. Now inflammation throughout her body is down. Even in off season, she looks more defined and cut than ever. Her brain function is better. Her depression is better. A number of other things with her health got better by doing the system. And did you hear me? She reversed her diabetes. Okay. I say reversed your diabetes because if we understand the root cause of diabetes, then we've addressed it. Medications can't reverse it. They're not addressing the root cause. They're addressing symptoms. They're trying to force your A1C down. But they're not addressing what are you eating that's causing you to be insulin resistant. How does your body address the amount of energy you get in? Can you guys tell I've been painting? It's all in my hair. That paint sticks. That was a really good primer, and it stuck to everything. Okay. So insulin resistance, you guys, it's so super simple to get rid of. But more importantly, you guys, some of the things that I shared with you that everyone else was suffering with, but for me, I've lost 55 pounds. I had diabetes. That's gone. I had hypertension. That's gone. I was losing my joints continuously. I've had 1 knee replacement and 2 hip replacements. Did anybody know that joint deterioration is linked to insulin resistance. The amount of joint replacements just doesn't need to be happening in the way it happens if we were ever counseled as to the fact that sugar, high amounts of sugar, glucose in our system are causing our bodies to be oxidated and inflamed, and that's causing deterioration of our joints. So if you're suffering with joint problems, know that if you get your insulin resistance, whether you've been diagnosed or not, you likely are. 93% of us have some type of metabolic disorder. You could feel better with your joints. I sure did. I got rid of skin tags. I got rid of that acanthosis nigricans or darkened skin patches. So vitiligo, melasma, acanthosis nigricans are all disorders of melanin in your system. Acanthosis nigricans and melasma have already been linked to insulin resistance, and now I think they're going to start to find links between vitiligo and insulin resistance as well. But if you have vitiligo and you have the other symptoms of migraine headaches and excess weight and whatnot, know that insulin resistance is a big cause there. So how did Lucy and I, and what's the system that Lucy and I are doing and that a number of other people are doing? It's just this. We're just putting nutrients back in. So it's gluten-free, it's halal, it's stevia and tea and a little bit of flavoring, not a ton of chemicals and stuff in here, approved by the PDR to be in there. We're in 62 countries across the world with approvals by the equivalent of the FDA in those countries. So it's a tea that I have every morning, a tea that I have in the afternoon, and a pre-meal drink that I have before I eat. So the tea is already mixed up for me. Now they give you a bottle this size, and for me the tea's too strong in this size, so I like to mix it in a little more water. I don't know, Lucy, how much do you drink? How much water do you drink with your tea and your balance? Now, this is the fiber piece, and I'm going to take it. Thankfully, I'm not experiencing a lot of that nausea that's been bothering me lately, but I'm going to drink this anyway, just because here's the thing. I'm in a fasted state. Just tear the top off of that. And this, adding this into my fasted state is going to help my probiotics start to feed on these. Now, not only am I giving my probiotics food, but the off-gassing of those probiotics eating this particular type of fiber, not this type of fiber, but the soluble fiber in this, are going to create short-chain fatty acids. Those short-chain fatty acids cue more ketone production. Ketones are the little messengers. Simple thing. Ketones are telling us to burn fat for fuel. So now instead of burning sugar for fuel and blocking fat breakdown, we're actually having insulin levels low in a fasted state, and we're having this autophagy and this ability to utilize fat and other degenerated tissue for fuel. So now I'm going to drink this. And that's going to go to work. It's going to help me feel full. It's going to soothe my stomach. It's going to help me stop from being hungry anytime soon. And it's doing my body a lot of good inside my gut. And it's always our health comes from the inside out. And that's it. You guys, it's about $5 a day. And I think because 93% of us are metabolically unhealthy, according to a 2022 study, then it makes sense to me why this product is so needed. You are not deficient in Mounjaro. You are not deficient in Ozempic. You are not deficient in statin drugs. And yet this one system getting control of insulin resistance, which is what the system does, can affect all of these other issues downline because it's addressing the root cause of why they're cropping up. So you can get it in my profile link just by tapping on my picture up above. There will be a white box come up below, and then you get to my profile. Underneath the red lights in my profile is where the products are. Now, why these two products? I'm going to talk about that a bit today. Let's see if I can get my slides in order here. I have stuff everywhere here. So the products, the tea, and I don't need slides for this. So you guys, the tea. the tea, is high in antioxidants, high in anti-inflammatories, and it has anti-cancer properties in it. It helps you feel full without even eating. It's helping you be more insulin sensitive by helping those receptors start to be able to respond to insulin again, allowing glucose into the cells. So now your cells are getting the energy they need. The tea does all of that, but it gives you mental energy and clarity. It gives you physical stamina and performance 10 to 15% more than without it. It also can increase that GLP-1 or glucagon-like peptide, which is in those drugs, Ozempic and Mounjaro, in a modified form that doesn't break down in the system. But this helps your own body increase production of that same GLP-1 by up to 70%. So now you're getting the benefits of those drugs without the negative side effects of them, because your body is naturally producing this and it breaks down and ebbs and flows like our body is meant to have. Because there's nothing in our body that should be there constant. Okay. We have times when our hormones are higher and lower, and all of our hormones. You guys, hormones are not just estrogen, androgen, testosterone. Um, Androgen, testosterone is an androgen. It's things like cortisol, leptin, ghrelin. Those are hormones. Thyroid is a hormone. So all of these things that determine our metabolism are determined by insulin resistance and how it affects the production of those other hormones. So this tea helps with all of that, giving you energy, giving you satiety, giving you anti-inflammation and antioxidant activities. Now, when I started the system, I had knees that you couldn't even see the kneecaps. My knees were swollen. My feet get cold, so I always wrap a blanket around me. But I had swollen feet. I had swollen knees. I was just puffy and swollen throughout my body. And a couple of months in, it was summertime, and so I was in shorts and I was sitting down, and I happened to look down and I realized I could see my kneecaps, meaning inflammation was leaving my body. And at that point, I didn't have a great diet. I didn't dive into all this stuff. I was still eating a McDonald's or Jack in the Box one time a day because I was driving for Lyft and Uber, and that's all that was available during the pandemic. So how did I get inflammation out of my body, still eating imperfectly? I started adding back in the stuff that my body is missing in order for it to do the job it needs to do. And that's what the system does. So the tea is part of it. Now, the tea is a great way to start your day. You can have it hot or cold. You're getting that energy. You're getting the mental clarity. Great time to have it just before you go to work, before you go into a test or a meeting. I've been in day-long trainings and meetings, and I've had like 5 of these because my ADHD makes me go to sleep if I have to sit still. This helps me with energy and focus so I don't have those issues. The pre-meal drink. 7 different fibers and insoluble and insoluble fibers, or insoluble fibers in this, scientifically combined to maximize the impact on your metabolism. So what does all of that mean? The fibers are specifically designed to help reduce blood glucose and lipids while increasing these things, short chain fatty acids and whatnot, that are helping us to burn fat for fuel. The fiber goes into my gut and starts thickening up, and it starts to gel up, and now my gut starts to feel fuller. So I'm more satiated. It happens when I drink this right as I eat. The same thing happens. Now I eat less at the meals. And it's not so much that we need to drop our calories to 500 or 1,000 calories like HGH and stuff does. The fact is that most of us are eating well above 2,000 calories a day. So this helps me with ingesting the proper amounts of food. And then it's also feeding those probiotics in my gut, helping to reduce inflammation and all of that. And that's all it is 2 drinks that I have at 3 points during the day. And it's totally changed my health, and it's changing the health of many, many other people. So you guys, that's the thing this morning. If you got anything out of this, let me know. I'm going to post a video on the phantom smells because it was an interesting one. I may post one on vitiligo. So those of you who have that, know someone who's experiencing it, can come back and find it. The rough explanation that I did this morning is on YouTube and will be housed there forever. So you can go look at that. And I don't know why I didn't change it. It says intermittent fasting still, and we're really talking about vitiligo and phantom smells this morning in relationship to insulin resistance and the system that helps it get better. So that looks like it stings. I love some of you guys' names. Gabriella, welcome in, and Glip63, welcome in. You guys, if you have questions about insulin resistance or how it's impacting your health, please ask them. I'm going to be on for a few minutes more and then I'm going to hop off. I will be back tomorrow morning at 8:30 to talk more about insulin resistance. And you guys, I'm so sorry that you can't see this, but it's linked to all of these things here. Let's just reverse this. So all of these things are linked to insulin resistance. So if you find yourself in that, understand that that's insulin resistance. So I'm just going to kind of ramble for a minute now. Insulin resistance, how do you know? Because I haven't talked about this for a while. How do you know that it's you, other than that you find yourself on this list somewhere? How do you know that you're probably insulin resistant? Well, let's take a look. Some of the top ways that I like to talk about, and I always forget to put in that bulging belly, but the bulging belly, that protruding middle, whether you're heavy or thin, that's a sign of insulin resistance. And what that is your body putting on too much visceral fat, the fat that's in and under the muscle wall of the tummy, and it's crowding out your organs and causing problems. But that bulging belly is one of the first signs of insulin resistance. Hypertension, a blood pressure of 130/80 or higher consistently, that's highly linked to insulin resistance. I'm just thinking because I haven't talked about this for a while. So there's two metabolic infertility problems that I talk about a lot with insulin resistance, and they're on this list: PCOS and erectile dysfunction. If you're suffering from either one of those, PCOS being polycystic ovarian syndrome, your periods are irregular and they're painful, and maybe you've been told you are going to have a hard time having children, and you're losing hair on your head but gaining hair on your face, and maybe acne is up and you're having weight problems and you're having mood problems. That's all PCOS. And that's all linked to insulin resistance. So that's two more of the top ways that you could tell if it's you. Some of the other ways are now in your skin, because your skin is your early warning system. So if you're having, in particular, if you're having skin tags or acanthosis nigricans, those are very directly linked to insulin resistance. If you have a skin tag, you're probably insulin resistant and you should start to address it before you start to see all of these other problems. But acne, cystic acne also falls in there. Um, Chicken skin can also fall in there. Psoriasis and eczema can also fall in there. They're not the predominant ones. Skin tags and acanthosis nigricans are, but all of those other skin issues can be linked to insulin resistance. Now, if you take a look at your last labs and you go down to the cholesterol panel, if you have those available, if you've even cared about them, what I want you to do is go find your triglycerides and your HDL, because there's a calculation in there that can help you decipher if you're insulin resistant or not. And that calculation is take your triglycerides and divide them by your HDL. And this is posted on the NIH's National Institute of Health website. But you're going to divide the triglyceride by the HDL. The resulting number, they had said for a long time 2.0. Now many doctors are leaning at 1.5 or less means you're insulin sensitive. Regardless, 2.0 to 3, you're building insulin resistance. 3, you have some insulin resistance and you need to start addressing it. That calculation is also in the How to Tell tab here on TikTok. And you can go find that at any point in time. There's also other calculations in there that help you understand if insulin resistance is affecting you. But better than that, just take a look at that list and understand that if you're experiencing anything on the list, especially like not just one, but maybe you have melasma and you have some depression and anxiety and you're having stubborn weight gain, you're probably insulin resistance, because that's a huge step. Crafty, I'm not sure. Yeah, Crafty, and that's a very personal decision. But if your mom's willing to do that and you're committed to her health, then you might end up doing that. So Crafty's mom has been very sick and she's been trying to help her, and doctors are resistant. So you guys, most of our doctors are not trained or taught about insulin resistance. That's one of the reasons we haven't heard about it. It's not that it's not there. In fact, the science on insulin resistance is more than 20 years old. They started recognizing it a long time ago. Why haven't we heard about it if it's been around for that long? Why haven't we had more studies on it? Well, let's talk about this. I should have a little tinfoil hat to put on, but I hate I hate and love the word conspiracy theorist, because conspiracy just means I don't follow the normal train of thought. And conspiracy theorists, that I think Candace Owens broke that down and told where that came from. But if we look at the reality of this and understand that if doctors were telling us that our food industry has screwed us over, the food industry would be losing out on money, and so would the pharmaceutical industry, because we get sick from the food we eat, then we get sent to doctors who give us prescriptions, and now they're all thriving and we're all sick and we're not getting better. They know that we're not getting the right food in. They know we're not getting the nutrients in, but no one's really talking to you about it. So that's a problem. And you have to be brave enough to step out and understand that getting a medication that you're paying for, that's destroying other problems in your health and really not making you better, is not the best route to your health. One of the stories I like to tell is this woman came into one of the medical clinics I worked in as I was doing her intake and her vitals and all her stuff, and those support in there. We don't have the knowledge of the doctor, but we're doing a lion's share of that work, right? So I'm in there with her. She literally reaches into her huge purse and pulls out 2 bags of medications and almost threw them and was just like, here, this is the medications I'm on. I don't even know anymore. And you go figure it out, because I can't. I'm just so frustrated. Now, how many of you people feel like that you're in that similar situation where you're being given a medication and then that medication is causing problems? So you're given another medication and then that's causing problems, and you're given another medication, and it's just a continual shove of medications in your face and no real answers. And then those medications stop working and you have to take more and more of them. That's the reality for many of us. And I know it wasn't just her or me. I was on 13 medications that I'm off of now. But I took her bags into our little nurse's station, and we had an EMR, so it's autofill. I'll just start typing in, and then it gives me the choices of the doses and the frequencies and all that, and I just select them. So I'm not like, but as I went through her medications, and there were a lot, it took over a half an hour, like working my butt off in the EMR, just auto-populating all this stuff, trying to get it in her chart. I wasn't able to finish charting all of her medications. But what I noticed was her chief complaint years ago caused her to be on medication A. Medication A gave her things like, I don't know, liver problems or skin problems or whatever. So then she's given a medication for that, but there are side effects to that medication. And then so now she's suffering with those side effects. So they come back in, and without looking and saying, hey, this medication causes, and that caused her to have this medication, and that's causing her to have this. And so maybe we need to figure out a different approach. They just gave her another medication. And all of a sudden that became 2 bags full of medication that I couldn't even get into an EMR in a half an hour of time of just plug and play, plug and play. That's happening. And is that creating health for us? It's not. And you guys know that it's not. It's just not giving us the health that we need. It's not making us better. It's not giving us better quality of life. It's not helping us in many ways outside of addressing symptoms, but not addressing the root cause. Why I talk about insulin resistance and the system, and why I get so, and you guys, I am truly, truly an advocate of the system. And even if I wasn't doing the system, I would be telling everyone about it. That's my personality. But the system has been saving lives. It changed my life. My grandson utilizes it for his liver disorder. My granddaughter, my other granddaughter, and my other grandson, my granddaughter was pre-diabetic. She uses it to keep her out of that range. My grandson is ADHD. He uses it to help him with focus. And my other granddaughter, I have 4 grandkids, she drinks the tea just because she loves it. Right? So if I come over and I have tea mixed up, she's going to find my mug and be like, I can drink Nana's tea. She likes it better than sodas or juices or any of that. So yay, right? Look at that's the best, and that just triggered me. That's the best tell of how something tastes. If a 5 or 6-year-old drinks it and craves it, it's gotta taste good, right? And that's the way that is. So, my daughter uses it. She had, hypertension, obesity issues, acne issues, a number of other issues that I talk about. So, she uses the system as well. So, that's and then my brother. So, I have at least 5 of my family members utilizing the system to improve their health. That's how much I believe in it. I feel like it saved my life. Working in medical, having the knowledge I have, I was struggling. I even had one doctor call me in and tell me after we ran tests, we did blood work, we did saliva tests, we did urinalysis, we did a 24-hour urine capture, we tested every hormone, everything that we could think of to understand why my health was failing so bad. And at the end of all of those tests and all of those studies, and all of that information, my doctor called me in because we finally did this metabolic test. And she said, oof, you have the worst genetic metabolic type that I could have had come into my office. And there's just nothing that I can do to help you. And she did weight loss stuff and she did hormone stuff. And so this was the doctor to talk to about all this, right? And she didn't have the answer. Does it make her a bad doctor? No, it means she just didn't have the right information. Then fast forward several years and I stumbled on this product. I was afraid I was going to die in my mid 60s if I didn't change something, and I knew I was. And so I gave this a shot. And it was expensive for me at first. So the expense objection, you guys, that's an excuse in your head. I'm just going to say but in my mind, I was like, well, I'm going to try this. If it doesn't work, I'm going to get my money back. So what do I have to lose? And lo and behold, it's the only thing that actually worked for me and reversed all of the symptoms that I was suffering with, or a majority of them. So I lost weight, I lost inflammation, I got rid of the neuropathy, I got rid of my hypertension, my eyesight got better, my bleeding teeth and gums stopped, my hair started growing in. This is probably the longest my hair's been in my life. It now in the back goes down below my bra line. It's never been that long. And guess what? That hair growth, or the lack of hair growth, they're starting to find studies that show that it's an early onset of insulin resistance there as well. So if you're unable to grow long hair, there's a possibility of a problem with that. So my life changed, and now I'm helping people change their lives too. Um, You guys, I did do a new blog post yesterday on intermittent fasting, and so go to Brilliant Health blog. There will be a blog post on this phantom smells, and I'll try and get the one up about vitiligo as well. But just go to Brilliant Health blog, and you're going to start to see all of these things. And my purpose is to link them or not to insulin resistance, and then tell you how the system can help you, the mechanisms that the system has that are affecting those disorders for you, so you can have a clearer path back to health. Okay, so I'm going to hop off, get the rest of my work done, hop into some meetings. You guys, I'll see you in the morning and we'll talk some more. If you have anything in particular you want to talk to me about, let me know. And we'll just talk in the morning. So if you're interested in the system, use the link above, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Have a great day, guys. Have a good day.